Yeah, no, I'm already recording.
Always are.
How long have you been recording me against my will?
The state of California, you need a permit for that.
Do I? I feel like that's not true.
That is actually literally true. If you're on only if you're on private property, though.
I'm not gonna lie. Like we both were in that class. I didn't retain like 90% of that.
Here's the thing. I didn't retain anything in that class either. I know that from BoJack Horseman.
What, you guys had a class on how to spy on people when you were in college?
No, we had, because him and I both have the same degree in digital movie making and video production.
Filmmaking.
Is it filmmaking?
Yeah.
I thought they took the film out of it by the end. It was like,
I don't remember.
Whatever. Point is,
What are you going to do? Make a film loser, as they say, as they hand you your degree?
But there was a series of classes that were all about like the legal implications of stuff, and it was taught by a man who was not prepared to be a teacher, because
at all.
We would just walk in and he would just play YouTube videos and hand us like worksheets, and then nobody would do the worksheet, and he just would never collect them, never grade us. Literally, you always pass that class with a B. Whether you turned in everything or nothing, you had a B.
Well, I remember that one specific class because he was teaching very remedial legal stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he made us all popcorn read this thing. And like I remember me,
Do you remember what the setup for that was?
I don't know.
He asked us. This is just the anecdote now, by the way. Like fuck the other one I had in the tube. What happened was there was a couple things in that class. He asked who here has ever entered a film festival, and like a couple of us raised our hands, including myself. And he asked me, he was like, oh, what information did they ask you to like sign up for it? I was like, they wanted like the names and positions of the crew, the name of the film, the file, and then like contact information. And he was like, and what else? And I was like, that's all they asked for. He was like, well, they couldn't have just asked for that. And I was like, I promise you that is all they asked for. And he kept going on and on about like, well, that can't be what they asked. So I pulled up the website on one of our friends' computers, turned it around, and I was like, this is all the stuff you need to fill out. If you are trying to make a point, you can just say it. You don't have to tell me that my memory is wrong.
Like if you entered a specific film festival and they asked you certain things, like, okay, cool. But like you asked him exactly what they asked for. And he answered your question.
Yes, and it's like, buddy, just move on. Like my experience isn't incorrect.
Okay, but like almost any answer that we gave him, like he would always
be like, but there's more, because he clearly wanted us to get somewhere. But it's like, buddy, these things change by the event. Like just say the thing. You don't need to ask us every time. It was infuriating. But that moved on to, he was trying to get us to say, well, did you ever have to do an interview or stand up on stage for it? Like to talk about the film. And I was like, no, literally never have I. I've never once needed to do that. I've seen the winners do that, but I never have. And he was like,
really bearing the lead there.
Yeah. And he was just like, well, he basically was saying like, that's impossible. And I'm like, buddy, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
you weren't in a film festival. You were in someone's garage.
I was like, because it was always like that. Just make the point you want to make, dude. So he got so upset that I was just like, I can't tell you what you want to hear. That he sent us on break, right? So we leave, and when we all get back from the break to the classroom, the door is locked, and we all have to sit outside. And then he comes outside, and closes the door behind him, and he goes, "You and you, come on in." And then like two of us would go in at a time, and he would hand us.
It was me and him, by the way.
Yes, and it happened to be me and him. And he hands us scripts, and he's like, could you just read pages 10 to 12? And like he wanted us like as if we were auditioning clearly, but he didn't say that. He was trying to prove a point again. So Adrian and I went up there and we just like stood there and read the lines because that's what was literally asked of us. And he was like, okay, thank you. And he sends us out and he gets 2 more people, and he does this for like all 20 people in the class. This took like half a fucking hour of time. We could have been watching YouTube videos.
You really missed out.
I was going to say learning, but so we all come in and he's like, so did any of you feel nervous up there? And all of us were like, no. And he was like, not a single one of you felt nervous, because you seemed nervous because you all would have lost the part because none of you auditioned well enough to do it. So you had to have been nervous. And then it was me again, just being like, buddy, I was like, what were you were trying to make us audition? Like, is that what you were going for? And he was like, well, I handed you a script and told you to read it. I was like, yeah, you told us to read words on a piece of paper and we read it. None of us were invested in this part. None of us wanted this part. Why would we be nervous that we wouldn't get the part that we didn't want?
Oh man, I missed this episode of Community when I was.
It really is, though.
It felt like it.
This was actually still the time where him and our other friend Jasmine were trying to convince me to watch Community for the first time. And I watched it and they were like, so we think you're Jeff. And I was like, all right. But no, yeah, and he got so upset at that he just canceled class for the rest of the day and sent us all home.
What a.
Yeah, no.
This happened every week, basically.
Wait, he canceled class he's like, fuck you guys. Then you don't
okay,
get to
so
learn.
most of our classes were like 4 hours, and at some point he would get mad at either me, him, or one of our other friends.
Because he would ask us something and would be like, this is the answer. And he'd be like, that's not the answer. And we'd be like, then what is the answer? And he's like, well, you can tell me what the answer is. And we'd be like, no, we literally can't. You're the teacher. We're the student. Teach us. Why do you want us to teach you? And then he would get mad and send us home.
When I was going to school, at a certain point, because like I wasn't really going for a degree. I was basically just like buying my classes like a la carte. So, like there was if you went through one of their programs, they would have given you some certification. But I was just like, nah, fuck it, I don't care about that.
You just wanted to know how to do it.
I had a class that was in Houdini, which is
an old magician who died from being hit in the kidney.
Exactly. That's how you use.
Is that what happened? I thought he like suffocated in one of his.
He was also hit in the stomach, but
it's the stomach. Okay.
Oh.
Someone. Okay, we'll do a fucking sidebar on how Houdini died, because apparently it's not common information. Houdini used to have a trick where he was like shredded on his abs. So he actually had a thing where you could punch him in the stomach and he'd be like, I didn't even feel it.
Yeah, that was a magic trick back in the day, by the way. Just being absolutely yoked.
Like it's like the 1920s.
Yeah. He would like call people up to the stage and then be like, punch me in the stomach. And they'd be like, all right, sir. And then they'd punch him and he'd be like, nothing. Go back to your seat. And
then someone just fucking killed him, right?
Yeah, literally what happened is someone went to his stage, went to the back room, like behind the stage, and was like, so Houdini, I heard you can be punched in the stomach. He was like, well, yes. And then he just got punched in the stomach, and then he was like, oh Jesus Christ, I hit me now.
Because he was like flexing, right?
He was literally just sitting down. The guy ran up and punched him in the stomach, like, yeah, feel that, bitch.
It just like exploded his stomach, right?
I like to imagine that he's still like trying to keep up the show.
I can't feel it.
Okay, so the funny thing is, I say it's a funny thing. It's not that funny. I mean, like, it's kind of funny. He did not immediately die from that. In fact, there is some kind of speculation that might not have even killed him. What may have happened, whether it was related or not, is he immediately went on to do his act, like, afterwards.
Yes.
Okay. And so people speculate that he might have actually had appendicitis, but couldn't recognize it because he was in so much pain from just getting fucking clocked in the stomach that he did the entire show being like, fuck me, my stomach hurts. All right, we're not doing the punching ab thing today. Why? Don't fucking go back to your seat. I don't everyone line up before the show and it's over. He just walked out of class like 3 hours into the 4 hour, you know?
Oh, that dude, 3 hours? You're giving him a lot, right? It was like, I think the longest one was like 2.5 max.
But anyway, so the Houdini I was learning, it's like a procedural tool. It's usually used for visual effects like fire simulation stuff in CG. And every single class, we would kind of learn about a topic, but he'd be like, so here's like the bare bones of how you'd use this. We don't really have, like, this entire class was like, these are things that the program can do. We really cannot talk about more than that because we need to get through, like, everything else. And we got to a point where every homework assignment would be like, okay, so we learned how to do some liquid sims. Now try to make a lava lamp. And I'd be like, well, I kind of know how to do that, but realistically, I have no clue how to do that because we have barely. You're like, this exists. Anyways, use it to do something that is much more complicated than clicking on a button and be like, see, this is a preset you have. So
this is how you open a new Photoshop project, and then what you're gonna do is produce the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. And
funny enough, we had a very similar assignment as our very first class in college.
To produce the Mona Lisa?
No, to produce a movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he just wanted it. Yeah, he wanted a very different professor, but they were friends, and I hated both of them. He was just like, yeah, so by the end of this quarter, you are going to have made a film. by the end of that quarter, not a single one of us had made a film.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, I'm very disappointed in all of you. And we were like, this is literally our first class in college. You didn't help us at all.
Right.
And he was just like, but you could have done it. And we were like, no. Like,
well, for me, I had gotten to the point where I had like kind of communicated with the teacher occasionally. He had walked around. We had I don't know what your classrooms looked like, but ours were like weird, like no one's desk faced a particular direction.
it kind of depended. Our building wasn't made to be a college. It was an office building at first and it got repurposed into one.
Like imagine like like the structure of how a cubicle would be set up, but like there are no walls. Like that's how all our desks sat.
Okay, that was kind of like ours, yeah.
And so by the end of the quarter, I turned in none of the assignments, and it was a thing of I was like, I'm probably gonna fail this class, but I'm also not really going for a certification, so it doesn't really matter for me. But I had talked to the teacher, and we also had a final. Like every single class when I joined there, they were like, "There's gonna be a midterm, there's gonna be a final," and I think I had one midterm and 2 finals through the almost 3 years I was there. Because by the time you got there, you realize like, oh, they will just teach the class however they care to teach, and sometimes like, yeah, I don't give a shit what's on the syllabus. We're gonna be doing it this way.
That's just art schools, I think.
Yeah,
like
sounds like it. Yeah.
And I got to the point where I was like, well, whatever. I at least can. He was like, here's the final, and it was like, try to recreate these 4 things. And I was like, I didn't really take like as intricate notes to do some of this way more complicated stuff, and I really was really bad at the program at the time. So I just opened up a previous file that we had worked on in class, copy and pasted it, and put it inside. And I was like, that should do me, because at least like I have something in there. And I left being like, all right, I'm gonna just fail this class. Doesn't matter. I got back and I turned in none of the assignments. I did kind of okay on the final, despite one of like the quarter of it just being me like, yeah, you showed me how to do this. I'm just going to copy and paste that bit. And he was like, all right, A+, 100%. And I was like, wow, I don't know how I got that. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, right before I left, because I actually had made all of my homework, and I was about to just drop it in. But as I left, I thought, I forgot to do that. Okay, it's fine. I'll just fail the class. I don't really care. I think he saw that I opened up a file that was supposed to be my homework, but because there's nothing in there, he was like, yeah, it probably got corrupted. We'll just give him an A. And I was just like,
it's one of those things, like that story, our story, other stories we have from college. It's one of those things that make you realize like, oh, nobody in the industry knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And the funny thing, like, I mean, I don't know about you, but all of my teachers had like pretty big credits under their name.
Oh, ours didn't. They were supposed to, but there were
some
a couple.
of them. Yeah,
okay, there were a couple.
All right. Bivens was the same instructor for the Coen brothers.
Yes, like he's in a couple of the Coen brothers like movies as like an extra too, just because he was like best friends with them basically.
Right.
Bivens was great.
Tiad worked on Donnie Darko.
I actually never had a class with Tiad. Oh. Or no, I had one with Tiad.
Oh.
And I mean, like Gallegos and Tarango, they both did like good work. Lucas did good stuff. It was
George
really just
Lucas was one of them.
Yes, George Lucas.
It was really just the 2 guys who were
like,
horrible, but they taught like every class.
Right.
Awfully.
It was the worst.
Yeah.
But anyway,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of
Crack Open a Cryptid. Is it cracking open?
Just crack the fucking thing.
No, hold on. What's the name?
It's Crack Open a Cryptid.
Whatever he said.
See, you guys got mad at me for not remembering the name the first couple of episodes. We're like 20 episodes in.
I think this is just a bit that Jeremy like refuses to learn.
No, because there's been a few times where I'm like, I want to listen to myself speak. I'll just turn on the podcast. And then I'm like, what's the name of that again?
I'm Tyler Shively.
Oh, I'm also Tyler Shively.
What? And what's your name?
Tyler Shively.
Bro. I'm wild.
There are 2 other people, but we're not going to give their names. They're mystery guests.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. Well, we have Jim the Pleiadian, right? Who sits in the chair behind us. And your jacket, but it's not here today because it's like 100 fucking degrees.
Yeah, I regret wearing this long sleeve shirt.
Buddy, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt and it's just kind of heavy and I'm hating it.
Yeah.
Speaking of this heat, we should really turn on that fan before we started.
Oh, damn, that's right. Now we just have to like do it for the next episode, huh? We can't just turn it on halfway through.
What the fuck are you talking about? Of course we can.
Go for it.
So I believe I'm doing this one, right, Adrian? You're
Yeah,
next?
I actually have no idea what this week what you're doing this week.
I decided to do an actual cryptid for once. Can you believe it?
There are real cryptids.
Well, no, I mean, like, we're not just talking about some bullshit that's only kind of related to a cryptid.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, real quick. All right, so this truly tropical punch which is apparently the best one here, or this blueberry acai lemonade.
Do the blueberry acai lemonade. That thing is, I like that one a lot.
All right.
In the mic.
Of course.
That wasn't bad.
That was
wasn't
crispy.
bad. If you didn't punch your microphone, that would have been really good.
Okay, it's a little difficult over here.
To be fair, he punched it before the.
You could cut the punch out. It's
yeah,
fine.
but now I'm just gonna have to like try.
Why can't you just be perfect?
Yeah,
and then
I'm
he won't have to do
sorry.
anything.
Jeremy's over here
sorry.
being literally perfect.
Every time
he
I
hasn't
speak,
fucked around with his mic stand once.
this episode,
He hasn't moved a can across the table just to distract me a single time. Yet.
can I point out that is the least effort I've had to ever do to drive someone insane? Like,
There's something about you that just
'Cause
makes me want to kill you.
I would
at
just
all
be like, oh,
times.
there's a can here. I'm just gonna move it an inch to the left, and Tyler's like, you what?
Because it's like, what the fuck are you doing? All right. Anyway, we're talking about a cryptid today. Have either of you heard of the Hafgufa?
What?
No.
The Hafgufa?
Show me a photo.
Well, it's a really old one. Let me just talk about the Hafgufa. So it was first described in the 12th century. Not a lot of photos back in the 12th century. I'm just going to break that bubble right now.
Give me a wall painting.
Well, it was from a Norwegian philosophical text called the Konungsskugja. I don't know how to read anything that's even remotely Nordic.
We'll just apologize to the Norwegian viewers.
No, they know what they did.
That's what you get for having a language.
So in the text, an unnamed king was describing a creature that he feared, and he was telling his son about it. He referred to it as, quote, a massive fish more akin to an island than a living creature. The Hafgufa was rarely ever seen, but whenever it was spotted, it was in one of two very specific areas every single time. It only ever showed up in one of these two areas. The king believed that there must either be two Hafgufa, or they must not move like at all, because they always seem to be in the same place, and they must be infertile. Otherwise, quote, the sea would be full of them.
So this dude saw an island and was just like, that's a very island-shaped fish.
But well, no, because it was like, to him, he clearly saw a living creature, and there's a couple things that we'll talk about that
so he's not
shows that it's living.
It's not a fish that looks like an island.
You remember?
No, it's like
You
it's
remember
like
Avatar: The Last
yeah,
Airbender?
It's like the turtle.
Yeah, the lion turtle.
Yeah.
Basically that, yeah.
So is he saying that he's very attracted? Because he's saying like, I don't know if this thing fucks, but if it did,
Well, it would just because they would be like an apex predator.
gotcha.
So this ocean would be full of them. Oh, you got an image of them up?
By the way,
Yeah,
I spelled
yeah.
this right the first time.
Dude, I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, so don't look too far in, because to eat...
We look too far.
No! So to eat, the Hafgufa would belch out a viscous liquid of nearly digested fish, which would act as chum and attract even more fish to nearly digest to then belch out to attract more fish. This is how it ate.
Yeah, that feels like he's losing nutrition.
That's what I thought as well, but that's how he said he would eat.
Okay.
It would be this like very dark black viscous fluid that would show up in the ocean. The creature was believed to be the mother of all sea monsters and could eat practically anything, including whales, ships, and other sea monsters. It was sometimes seen alongside another sea monster known as the Lingbacher. Have fun with that one. I can just spell it for you if you want.
No. Let me.
There's an L in it.
There is. It's at the very beginning.
All right, that's your hint.
But they would be mistaken together whenever they would seem together. They would be mistaken as a large island with surrounding rocks, because the Lingbacher was like parts of it would pop up and be the rocks. Surrounding
I
the
see.
island.
Okay.
This interaction, whenever they were together, was documented in the old Icelandic saga known as the Orvar Oder. Again, they know what they did. Historians believe that the Hafgufa was a creature invented to reference the Kraken, but in a fictional space for the text, then later used as the real name for it because I fucking tricked you. Today we're talking about the Kraken.
Oh, okay.
That's it. That was my whole bit. just to talk about this other creature that ended up being the Kraken.
You tricked me after I specifically asked you not to.
The Hofgufa would become the first ever recording of the Kraken. So let's talk about the Kraken as we know it, because the description is not initially what you may think. So to you guys, when you think of the Kraken, what do you imagine?
Jack Sparrow, like, fucking, what's it called? Stabbing the fucking...
You couldn't remember the word stabbing?
I think you can't remember the word tentacle.
Tentacle, thank you,
There we
you. Yeah, stabbing some fucking tentacles on a pirate ship as it's going down.
So what does the Kraken look like in your head?
Giant octopus.
I would say giant, but I think it also can look like Gyarados, like a very large like eel.
Kind of.
Okay.
The only common trait in any description of the Kraken, because there's been a bunch, the only common trait is that it's fucking huge.
Yeah.
It is at least a mile in length, according to every report. That is the smallest measurement we have, a mile in length. That's very big.
How'd they measure that?
Because sailors would describe it as the length of 10 ships, which at the time would measure roughly to 1.5 miles.
How large are their ships?
At the time, quite big. They were long ships.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
He's Rain Manning.
I'm always terrified to do quick math, because one time I tried quick math and you were like, quick, what's 50 plus 70? And I was like, I don't know, man, it's too complicated of a number. 300, let's go there. And you were like,
120. Why
Sorry,
the Kraken has become the latest pro-Trump rallying cry.
That was like one of the first things that came up, by the way, when I searched up Kraken.
what,
I think that must be recent.
why release the Kraken? Why release
Yeah,
the
why?
Kraken?
Read us this article in full on the podcast.
In full? All right.
No, shut the fuck
Just give me the cliff notes.
All right. But
Okay, so
well, they're probably referring to him as the Kraken, and it's like, we have to release him because he's going to save the day because they're all brainwashed morons.
yeah, I know that, but I mean, it feels like
essentially
he's a
that's
very
it. Yeah.
ocean-based fixing of the problem. It's like, hey, all politicians go to the
Well,
beach.
he's the same color as a crab.
I'm pretty sure it's just a movie reference to Clash of the Titans.
Well, here's the thing. I mentioned crab not only because he's orange, but because the Kraken is usually quite crab-like in ancient mythology.
See, the thing, because I was imagining
That
how
was
the
an
Dungeons
accident.
and Dragons monster manual depicts the Kraken.
Yes,
and
it is
it's
much closer.
Yeah, it is more of like it's not one particular creature.
Yes.
It's
It's like a crab squid island. Now, others, so very big. This is the only common ground. It's very, very big. Some claim to see a large, bumpy nose, or potentially that's just its entire head. It's kind of hard to tell whether those are two big nostrils popping out or if those are like where its eyes should be, kind of thing.
It's a big bumpy head, and he's got two nostrils.
Yes.
Okay.
This description was very hard for me to parse.
All right.
And that's the best I got. But others see enormous, thin appendages similar to tentacles protruding from beneath the beast. Sometimes they protrude from what would be the nose, but many of the tentacle accounts describe a plethora of spikes attached to them. So it's like a big, bumpy crab made of rocks with tentacles coming out the bottom.
And they got spikes on those tentacles.
And they got spikes on the tentacles. But yeah, early accounts do describe the creatures having more crab-like appendages rather than tentacles. The tentacles with the spikes seems to have evolved over time, because originally it was just all big crab boy.
Subnautica, that's what it reminds
Yes,
me of.
yes.
Okay.
It would fit very well in Subnautica.
Okay.
So modern accounts, modern I'm using loosely because there really haven't been modern accounts, but back in 1735, just yesterday, Carl Linnaeus wrote the first edition of the Systema Naturae, a catalog that systematically documented all known living creatures in and around Sweden. This is a man who was an actual scientist of the time and just cataloging all life in Sweden. In it, one of the catalog creatures was the Kraken, but he classifies it as the Microcosmus marinus. And he categorized the Kraken as a cephalopod, which is probably why it's led to the squid-like description today.
So what is a cephalopod like?
Squids and octopi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you said that, my first thought was like a snail.
I think snails, some sea slugs fit under the cephalopod title, but I'm not super sure.
Let's not. Don't look that up. That's new information. If that's
Yeah, I'm just claiming it today.
Won't be on Wikipedia yet.
Yet. In his later work from 1746, so 11 years later, the Fauna Suishka, Linnaeus made a point of writing in it, quote, "It is said to inhabit the seas of Norway, but I have not seen this animal myself." Mm-hmm. So he kind of covered his tracks 11 years later and was like, look, I know I said it's real. A lot of people think it's real. I don't know if it's real because I've never seen it, but it's in the book. Except for the next edition, because every later edition was basically exactly the same with more stuff, just the Kraken got taken out. He is only in the first edition.
He's like, oh, that
Should probably
that did not work out for me. I'm not gonna lie. He probably said it in Norwegian, but
Yeah, but they know what they did.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna try.
Did you just say he was Norwegian?
He was Swedish.
Oh well, he would have said it in Norwegian because he was bilingual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because he's one of them.
I think that those they all their languages do actually sound similar enough that you
Because
can.
they all derive from like just Nordic, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
So it's like same deal with Spanish, Portuguese, and all that.
Yeah.
But like supposedly, like you can speak in your language to a person who's speaking their language, and you will probably have a fine conversation.
Yeah, it's just like every derivative of Spanish. If a Spaniard talks to a Portuguese guy, talks to an Italian woman, they probably all know roughly what they're saying.
Yeah, I concur with that.
But then Mexicans are just like, I don't know what any of that means.
Yeah, no, we don't speak Spanish. We speak Mexican.
I actually do hear that as like less and less as a joke lately, where it's like, no, it's kind of just its own language now.
Honestly, at this point, it kind of is.
I remember the other day being like, I say the other day, like 3 or 4 podcasts ago, where I think I referred to like Mexican as the language of Mexico, and everyone here was like, "Can't believe you would say such a stupid sentence."
Well, that's because we hate you.
Yeah,
and
I know.
You to feel bad and stupid.
I mean, contextually, I might have been wrong, but not the way I remember it.
So shortly after Linnaeus's publications, in 1752, Eric Pontoppidan, I practiced his name.
Papadums, yep.
Yep, that's the one.
Like the Indian bread.
He wrote The First Attempt at a Natural History of Norway. That is the name of his work. The First Attempt at a Natural History of Norway.
Oh, okay.
That is the name of the work. He described the Kraken as an actual species, as if it were real. Didn't have that little foreword from Linnaeus where he was like, look, I don't know if it's real. Which basically just kind of says like, this is a cryptid. Right. Linnaeus was pretty much saying this is a cryptid before the term was coined.
So I have a question. When people, like, obviously people reference it as a thing, but was it actually something that, it's hard to phrase this, but like, I imagine like a lot of seafaring folk would be like, yeah, I've heard of it, but I've never actually seen it. But like, I know a guy who's seen it.
Yes, and this is actually what Pontoppidan wrote about, specifically. He claimed that the creature itself was dangerous, but it was not nearly as bad as the whirlpools that it left when it departed. Because some of the legends say that it has like kind of magical abilities where it can make whirlpools appear. Some say he like shoots it out of his weird nose. The more scientific answer would be when he leaves, like goes underwater, that creates a whirlpool essentially.
Well, I know that in Greek mythology they had a specific monster that was basically a whirlpool, like because they didn't know why the water just suddenly made these big vortexes.
It wasn't Scylla; it was the other one that was really similar.
Yeah, but the thing was, they're like, look, we like don't every time a ship goes into one of those, they don't come out, and it's probably because something's eating them at the bottom, not because the ship's underwater all of a sudden.
And this was formed from the Kraken with doing whirlpools was formed from a similar place, essentially.
I just figured that was like a dragon scenario where a lot of people have basically the same explanation.
Yes, exactly. Now, according to him, quote, it is said that if it were to lay hold of the largest man of war, which at the time was like the biggest warship that existed, they would pull it down to the bottom, unquote. In his studies, he found that many Norwegian fishermen would risk fishing over and around the Kraken because, according to them, its feces would attract innumerable fish to the area. So they said it was the feces. The ancient Nordic traditions said that it was the chum that it belched up. But the one thing that they all agreed with was that the Kraken, this creature, while it was very dangerous, it would make a viscous, dark liquid that would attract fish.
Were they seeing this liquid?
Yes.
Okay, so what is this liquid in real life?
I will get to that.
Okay.
Because it might be real, like an actual real thing.
I doubt it.
Do not set me up for failure, like someone in this room often does.
Okay, hang on. Hang on.
I remember a few podcasts ago, I'm like, what was it? This sounds like vampires. You're like, well, hold on there a little bit.
He does that all the time.
It's called
and
creating.
I'm never ready for it.
It's called creating tension.
No, it's called creating a lie.
And then when you get there, you're like, look, it really wasn't vampires, but
I'm like the WandaVision in this group, where like I put up a lot of great questions, but the payoff is kind of disappointing, to be honest.
Where was Doctor Strange?
We'll get to that.
So, if we're going to talk about what this stuff actually is, by the way, thank you, Jeremy, for building all my segues for me this episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about what this really is.
Segway machine over here.
Really, honestly. There are genuine descriptions that could fit what the Kraken is. And the obvious and correct initial guess is that the giant squid inspired the concept of the Kraken. So let's talk about giant squids.
Yeah.
Because giant squids, for a long time, were a cryptid in the same vein. So, and also the Kraken only kind of fits the description of the giant squid, but I will fit that in
It's like
as
a
well.
more modern interpretation of the giant squid.
Would you believe that my bullet point that I was going to read next is, and only the modern accounts fit at all?
Yes. That doesn't seem like something you would lie about.
Like, he hasn't seen this outline. How did he know that? So, remember that the early accounts of the Kraken describe the creature as a mix of like a whale, a crab, and an octopus. That's sort of the idea. Now, while our giant squid
Walk the
fits...
crab.
Yeah. While the giant squid fits 1/3 of that description, there's no accounting for a lot of the other problems. So the matches between them are that squid and octopi are very similar creatures. Just get that out of the way. For a long time, there was not a difference in written record because they thought they were just the same creature, but just different ones. And especially at that time, the difference between squids and octopi was just not even like thought about.
So were you saying that there wasn't another word for them, or they were interchangeable?
They were pretty much interchangeable.
Oh, okay.
Because you wouldn't travel as much, and obviously food wasn't imported, so it'd be weird to see, unless you're in very specific areas in the world, it'd be weird to see frequently octopus and squid.
Okay. Well, because I think some octopus, even though their name says they have 8 tentacles, I don't even think that's true to all species of octopus.
They tend to have 8, whereas squid tend to have 10.
Yeah, but I think there are some octopus that only have 6.
Yes. They just tend to have 8. Yeah. The octopus, by the way, has the same ones as the squid has the same 8 as most octopus, but they have 2 big club tentacles where they're like shaped like this.
Oh.
Like if you cup your hand.
Yeah. For the audio listeners, just like this. Just
if you like cup your hand and do the Disney wave, that's what they look like.
Why is this the Disney wave?
Well, it's like when the Disney princesses
well,
are.
I know.
I'm glad somebody knows.
Yeah.
I know that like that's where it gets the name
But
from.
like,
But
why is
yeah.
it? Yeah, because it looks fucking stupid.
They're probably
right?
worried that they're accidentally gonna whip out like a Hail Hitler accidentally. They're like, oh, we'll just wave to that one a little bit lower. It's like, hey, keep your hand up.
Well, if they ever do a Disney movie about Ava Braun, that would be very fitting.
Yeah, she can be like, oh, I'm gonna wave to everyone. It's like, whoa, raise that hand a little bit.
Ava.
You're hitting a 45-degree angle.
So back to the giant squid. It is interesting because giant squid do have spikes on their tentacles, just like the Kraken was described to have.
Can they punch things? Sorry, can squids punch things with their club?
They,
Like,
they don't punch it; they club it. They pinch like a crab. No. They don't have spikes like that. It's like barbed essentially.
Oh, okay.
Like around where the suckers are.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know it's
Okay.
terrifying. Don't look at pictures of it. He said.
Yeah, please look up.
Yeah, and then he
pictures,
goes looking for it right there. Now, to talk about this, we have to mention the belch of the Havgufa, right?
Mm-hmm.
The belch are the feces that attract a bunch of fish. So the fish being attracted to the Havgufa, to the Kraken, whatever, they share many physical similarities to the squid's ability to eject ink. Oh yeah, he found the spiked tentacles. Yeah, it's not fun to look at.
Yeah, no, look at that thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of have you ever seen the throat of a turtle?
Yes,
Yeah,
terrifying.
it's a portal to hell.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Now, not all squid can eject ink, right?
Didn't know that.
And oh yeah, well, not all of them can. It's actually a little rarer than you would probably imagine.
Oh.
But we aren't really sure if the giant squid can at all. We assume it can because of other
Yeah.
like similarities with various smaller types of squid.
Well, because we've never. Okay, so
We've never caught a living specimen.
yeah, that was going to be my
about to
thing.
ask
Of
that, yeah.
Should we talk about the giant squid?
so, I think so because this is super recent. Like as of 2016 was the first time that I think we like actually confirmed the.
Well, I thought it was before that because I seem to remember in like my high school textbook something about.
Yes and no. That was
Yeah.
not a giant squid. That was
Oh,
a
was it?
colossal squid, which I'm actually going to get into later.
Okay.
Which one was the?
Yours is correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was 2016. It was 15, 16, or 17 where we got a dead specimen and the footage.
Yeah. See, that was because I remember people for a very long time being like, "Well, we know giant squids exist. We've just never actually seen one because
Now-
they are deep sea animals."
Do you know how we knew they existed? Because I find it fascinating.
If memory serves, it's because sperm whales would have their beaks in their stomachs when
Exactly
they beached
correct.
on them.
So the only adversary to the giant squid, because it's nearly an apex predator, but sperm whales will fight giant squids. They eat them because they apparently are like really, really tasty to sperm whales. They really enjoy eating giant squids. But the thing about the giant squid, like most squids, is they have a beak, but that beak is not digestible. So we started finding corpses of sperm whales that would either float to the surface or like beach or whatever. And when we would cut them open and do autopsies, they would find just hundreds of these beaks in its stomach that it just couldn't finish. As well as the fact of we see a lot of sperm whales essentially have battle scars, which clearly fit tentacles with suckers with spikes.
Right.
So we can see the effect of giant squids, but we didn't see that they existed.
See, it's stories like that where anytime someone brings up a cryptid and they're like, "Oh, but there's no evidence that actually shows there. We're just, one time one guy saw it." It's always like, here's the thing. On the times that there actually were, like, that cryptid was real, we 100%...
Like, knew already.
Yeah, we could know that it would... Like, here's the thing. If someone walked around where Bigfoot existed and there was just fucking massive piles of shit, like, all around, we'd be like, that's a Bigfoot shit. Like,
And that is a incredible point.
Yeah.
But now we know the giant squid exists because we did actually catch footage of it. What you're thinking of, though, Adrian, of the specimen, that ended up being a colossal squid.
Wait, so which one's bigger?
The giant squid.
Feels like they missed those names.
Yeah, they fucked it up, right?
They should rename it, like, the Titan Squid.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
But now let's talk about the problems between comparing the Kraken to the giant squid, right?
Throw it at me.
The largest giant squid that we've ever seen, because we've seen more, by the way, since that footage.
Okay.
We've caught more evidence of them. They are for sure a thing. We are tracking a few of them. We know about this. But the largest one that we've ever seen was 13 meters long, which is nearly 43 feet in freedom units.
Thank you.
As opposed to the metric feet that that you're probably confusing them with.
Well, yeah. Those are unfree feet.
Yeah.
The Kraken was reported to be over 100 times that size because it was nearly a mile to a mile and a half long.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's
And it's important to note that is the only common variable in all Kraken descriptions.
that they're
huge.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you can't meet that one thing, because if this cryptid has changed so much over time, you have to focus in on the one thing that didn't.
Right.
Obviously, it's not real, but you have to focus in on that if you're going to discuss it.
Well, because I know that like there are a lot of I think they're called Mosasaurs. They're the fish dinosaurs.
Yes, Mosasaur. Yeah.
Mosasaur. Obviously, we have fossils of those.
It's the one that eats the Indominus Rex at the end of Jurassic World.
Thank you.
Is that
he was Googling it.
is that the actual name of that? I thought Mosasaur was
that creature in Jurassic World is way bigger than a Mosasaur actually was.
Oh, okay.
A Mosasaur was probably about 1.5 times the size of a blue whale.
Blue whales are pretty big, though.
Yeah, but they're not that fucking big.
I don't know. I don't have a... Okay, so... The thing that blew my mind...
That was my favorite dinosaurs kit. That was one of my two favorite dinosaurs.
My question is I didn't realize that was the actual name of it. I thought that was like the classification of like the animals that lived like in the ocean were mosasaurs.
And that might be true because again, it was one of my favorite dinosaurs when I was a kid.
Sure.
Like double-edged sword.
Right. Like, I'll look this up in a bit. But my idea was like they're not dinosaurs, they're mosasaurs because they're seafaring animals. Like dinosaurs on land. Was how I thought that was broken up.
Maybe.
Okay. My question is, obviously there were very large creatures in the Pangea era. Do we know?
As they frequently call it.
Yeah. the general Pangea times is.
You guys remember when all the continents were just one big fat one?
Was there anything that was like even remotely like that big?
No.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
So the closest thing would be like a mosasaur.
Yeah. And that was a blue whale, which.
Well, even now, like blue whales are really fucking big, man.
Yeah.
Like.
So is there?
And whale sharks are also enormous. I actually don't know which one is bigger.
Is there a chance this Kraken is just like a whale or something, and like everyone was just like
remember
tripping?
that is part of how they described it. It was a whale crab squid.
Oh, right.
Or whale crab octopus.
Yeah, I feel really stupid sometimes when I go to look up a word and then like I'm like, oh, I didn't know how to spell that word.
Yeah.
I'm like how there's an H in whale apparently.
A stupid, not the country, buddy. Just how big is a whale? And you're like, wow, that's like the size of a country. No, I do this really embarrassing thing that I haven't talked about before, where if there's ever a word that I'm like, I should know a definition of that, but I like can't think of it, I open an incognito tab to search the definition of it because like I don't want people knowing I had to Google this as if someone's going through my search history.
Sometimes I have thoughts that I'm like, oh, that's like sometimes it's related to like me watching a movie or something like that. And sometimes it's like a crime thriller or something. I'm like, how does that law work? So I'll just be like, how statutory rape California laws, and I'm just like, oh, that's
Should incognito down.
yeah, really okay. They're like, all right, so this guy was looking at Minecraft and then the statutory rape laws.
Ooh,
all right,
book him.
Blue whales are 82 feet long. So if you're saying they're about 1.5, that's 100 and like 30 some feet would have been that mosasaur. Are you saying that's still too small for how they depict it in the movie?
Yeah, I'm pretty. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just read that somewhere when the movie came out.
That's fine. I'm not holding you accountable for what Jurassic World.
Now I have to.
That's what it was.
I have to apologize. I made a factual error earlier in this episode.
This isn't the Kraken? Like we're talking about another animal the whole time?
Yeah. No, the giant squid is actually a few feet smaller than the colossal squid. I would like to apologize.
Thank you.
To everyone in the room and all of our listeners for leading you astray. Only Jeremy is allowed to lead you astray with his
wrong information.
Yeah, his confidently incorrect information. So we do have to talk about the colossal squid, right? It's only a couple feet bigger than the giant squid, but that is closer than the giant squid was.
So did we find the colossal squid in 2016, or is that
the body was of a colossal squid? The video was of the giant squid.
It's weird how like imagine someone was like, "Hey, did you know there's another color? It's called like pink blue," and you're like, "Oh, I didn't know about that." And they're like, "You maybe do not confuse it with light pink blue." And I'm like, for years I have thought we've only ever found one color, and now you're telling me there's like a
two?
slight variant on this color.
There actually is. Now, the average colossal squid is believed to be even larger than the giant squid, but only by a few feet. It's another one where we don't have a lot of information on it, so just from the little we have, it's like we could have just seen 3 really big ones, and they on average are smaller than the giant squid, but we don't have enough of a sample size to look at that. Now, the thing about the colossal squid, though, is that it only lives around Antarctica. I don't know if you know this, but the Nordic states are not near Antarctica. In fact, many would say it's on the opposite side of the world.
I'm really glad that you went through that bit because I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? The Antarctic Circle is right there.
Also, the giant squid just doesn't look anything like the original depictions of the Hofgufa or even early Kraken accounts. That fits for all of the
cephalopods. Was that a floating iceberg? Were they just like, oh, this iceberg seems to be moving?
It honestly could have been.
Oh.
Genuinely could have been. Now, but the problem with the iceberg theory is that the Kraken kills things and searches them out and hunts prey.
And I've never seen an Titanic. That iceberg did a lot of damage, a lot of death.
That iceberg was clearly tracking it.
Yeah.
But yet the Kraken, in all accounts, will hunt down and chase prey, whereas the giant squid and the colossal squid prefer to like just sit motionless and wait for prey to come by and then snap it up.
Right.
Also, the giant squid cannot produce galleon-destroying whirlpools with its non-existent nostrils. Just feel like I should throw it out there.
I'd be more terrified if it
could.
could with its non-existent nostrils. Like, it's like it doesn't
Where
even
the
have.
fuck did it get those?
It doesn't even have nostrils, and yet it's breathing out on us.
Now, it's interesting. Again, segue machine over here. There is another giant squid. There's a third one.
What do you mean?
Wait, what's this one called?
So I
The
don't
large
actually,
squid.
I don't have the name of it.
Grande
but
squid.
we have found fossils of an enormous dolphin. Now, stick with me. Enormous dolphin-like dinosaur known as the Ichthyosaur. You've probably heard of the Ichthyosaur.
Yeah.
Now, the Ichthyosaur fossils have been scattered all around northern Europe, which includes the areas where the Kraken was sighted, and their bones were left in patterns similar to what modern squid and octopi do to the bones of their prey. Because when they eject the bones, because they can't digest the bones, they tend to put them in like very specific little piles, and that's just how they excrete them. And we have found Ichthyosaur bones in those same piles. Some of the fossils also show signs of constriction along the rib cage, almost as if a large tentacle had crushed it. Many archaeologists believe that a large creature, similar to that of a squid or octopus, must have existed in the Triassic period and hunted the Ichthyosaur, which was at least 30 feet long. So there was an even bigger squid at some point in history, but we don't have a name for it because we don't have evidence of it existing.
Because they can't make a fossil, right?
Exactly.
So,
But it's the exact same thing as the giant squid, where we knew it existed, we just never found one.
interesting.
We're pretty much in the same position, but this creature is extinct. This, of course, lends to the idea that one must have survived much longer than the Triassic period and eventually became the Kraken, similar to how like the last Plesiosaur became the Loch Ness Monster in mythology.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the Kraken. There's basically what we know about. The only thing about the Kraken is like it's not a squid.
Which is funny, because usually if you're like, what's the Kraken? I'm like, well, it's a squid.
Yeah, and so like that part's interesting, but like, yeah, the Kraken doesn't have a whole lot of sightings that are like interesting. A lot of them are just like big fucking sea monster out there. Can you believe that shit? And then everyone at the time was like, well, yeah, of course I can believe that shit. There's a bunch of big fucking sea monsters out there. We all know that. It's drawn on the map.
Well, see, my favorite part about this was where you said, like, some of these sailors were really risking their lives, you know,
Yes.
to farm in the areas where the Kraken was. So I was like, it's pretty low risk in your life, though. You're like, we've never seen it before, but we're just going to be right here on the ink.
And odds are those sailors actually were coming across like just really big squid. Maybe not a giant squid, but like a real big one.
Well,
because the fluid that the Hufgufa and the Kraken released is squid ink.
Sure.
Like that's just it was squid ink.
And I mean, I think like even in modern day, like the idea of fish stories of you're like, oh, we caught a fish and it was like, you know, yeah. When in reality it was like, oh, I could pick it up with one hand, but when I tell the story,
it's gonna be two hands.
Yeah. We saw a 40-foot long squid, but by the time you get back to shore, you're like, an 80-foot long squid.
Yeah. And then the next guy is like, oh, you wouldn't believe my buddy told me about the squid he saw. It was like 100 feet long. And then, because that's how myths are started, you know? That's
100
just
feet
how
long.
It expands. A mile long.
Yeah.
A mile long to the sailor in the back.
It's
just an auction.
How
big was the Kraken? We got 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet. We got 200 feet, 250 feet, 1 mile long. 1 mile long for the sailor in the back.
2 miles long.
2 miles long. He says 2 miles long. Anybody got a longer squid?
Woo! Longest squid sighting over here.
Sold. Write it down. Trick people for centuries.
I'm gonna draw it on a map.
Ooh, he's a cartographer.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it right there, right next to this island. Don't get confused.
I'm just imagining one of those beautiful, intricate maps of the period, and then just like a crayon drawing of like a smiling squid.
Well, I don't know. It reminds me of in the movie Pirates Band of Misfits, where they're like, oh, we really need to get to here, but there's a big sea monster in the way, and they're like, yeah, that's just drawn on the map, you know, like.
From my understanding, actually, a real fact is they drew those creatures on the map to basically say like these are dangerous waters. Because at first it was like a sea monster must destroy all the boats that go through there, but really it's just like no, that's just really dangerous waters.
Yeah.
And it
There's a
ended up
big
just
rock
kind of
there that people
evolving.
keep hitting.
Essentially, yes.
Well, I always figured that was stuff where like a lot of like really ancient books before writing was like common. They were like, well, we can't just have a regular book like when you make these fancy. So they were often like in the margins there were like practically full like paintings and stuff. So they were just like, if it's empty space, like, you know, we're not buying the paper for no reason. Like put something in there. So a lot of old books have just like oddly gay things in them.
Ancient
what?
history is gay as hell.
Like-
do you know about this?
I didn't.
Ancient
no.
history is the gayest shit I've ever seen, and I love it.
You'll be like, all right, I'm just reading this regular semi-gay story, and then you
and
look
then you
up
turn
and
the
you're like,
page, and there's like, that dude's putting it in his butthole.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I know that there's like a ton of like paintings and shit about with like dudes doing it.
Oh yeah.
Well,
the
but, like-
Romans actively encouraged it.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
good on them.
The Greeks just were like, put your dick in whatever you want.
they were just like, sometimes
Just rub it with olive oil. That's a real thing. They
That-
used
that-
olive oil as lube.
and you don't.
No, I used butter.